So, what is going on, guys? I am Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another zombies video where the last and final cipher has been solved within Classified. Now, so far on this channel, I've been covering each and every cipher. I've been breaking them down and explaining what they mean in not only this map, but Mob of the Dead, Voyage, and 9. All of them so far in Classified were super interesting. There was only this one that hadn't been solved. And I said in a previous video, once it has, I will update you guys on it. And finally, well, it's been finished by both Rich Killer and Coldstone the Gamer. Both of these guys have done a load of ciphers in BO4, but this one is indeed very interesting. Like a few of the others, it takes us all the way back to World at War, to the beginning of our storyline, because as we know, Classified is part of our original story with the Ultimus crew. But anyway, getting into it, a like rating would be appreciated if you want to. Make sure you are subscribed. But here we go. So this is the cipher up on screen now, and once you solve and translate it, it says August 8th, 1947. I've been logging materials acquired from Group 935 for some days now. Major Sawyer has asked me to evaluate files pertaining to undead experimentation. And this afternoon I happened upon an old friend. Hidden deep away in storage was Dr. Maxis' original matter transference prototype. Apparently, it was one of the items the Americans acquired when splitting Group 935's resources with the Russians. Unsurprisingly, it is in a terrible state of despair. Missing pieces, badly damaged, completely non-operational. To be fair, Maxis himself stopped using it after the failure of those initial tests in 1939. While useless in its current state, it will provide great reference when we begin teleporter development at this facility. One thing I had never noticed before, scratched into the bottom of the machine was a message for M, who started me on this journey. It struck me as odd. I can't recall anyone at Group 935 who went by that initial. I haven't the faintest idea who Maxis could have been referring to. Schuster. So of course this whole letter relates to a teleporter we can find in Classified. This one right here, which was also in the original 5, can be found just shoved in the back of one of the rooms in the laboratory. But we know, and as this letter says, this half-built teleporter was retrieved by the Americans when they raided Group 935's bases. When Group 935 was abandoned after the zombie outbreak in Riese in 1945, we know most of the Group 935 employees were killed, their facilities were overrun, and were eventually just left to rot. Both the United States and the Soviet Union then travelled to all of these past Group 935 facilities, to their research stations, and recovered their old resources. They took Group 935's blueprints, their designs, their schematics, their weapons, their ideas. We know that the Soviet Union took blueprints on the Thundergun, and the US took Group 935's wonder weapons. They took the ray gun. As this letter says, they also took their teleporters back to the Pentagon, where they reverse engineered them and tried to use Group 935's creations to make their own. The Pentagon wanted to make their own teleporters, their own versions of the zombies, their own wonder weapons, all based off Group 935's work. And that's exactly what they did. When they travelled to Riese, they took Dr. Maxis' original matter transference prototype, one of the first teleporters he made, but as they say, it was in very bad condition. It had missing pieces, it was badly damaged, it didn't work, and to be fair, Maxis himself stopped using it after the failure of the initial tests in 1939. And if you listen to the radios in Riese, Maxis mentions how work on the teleporters had come to a standstill simply because they didn't have enough money or Element 115 to continue on with the experiments.
Sophia, this letter is to go to the Reichstag High Command immediately. Gentlemen, it is with the utmost urgency that I draw your attention to the lack of funding being injected into the giant project. While I believe we are close to realizing the ultimate plan, we still have several years of development before it is ready. It would be folly to cut our expenditures so early in our development. As you know, early tests on the DG2 have easily outperformed expectations, and we fully anticipate mass-producing the Wunderwaffe within the next few years. Work on the matter transference has, however, come to a standstill. We simply do not have enough Element 115 to continue the experiments. The test subjects have survived teleportation, but are currently unresponsive to commands and cannot be controlled. If we are to overcome this obstacle, we need to increase the frequency and size of the experiment. To this end, I suggest we find not only a regular supply of 115, but that we also find a larger conduit to channel the energy. Our operatives in America have informed us that the U.S. has a large supply of the element at the Nevada base. So time is of the essence if we are to stay ahead of them. This cannot be done if you cut the budget, nor can it be done if you insist on pressuring us into action before we are ready. I am of course available for discussion on the matter, but in the meantime, I will continue with the work here and try to win this damned war. Signed, etc., etc., Dr. Maxis.
So this teleporter that we see in Classified or 5 was an unfinished prototype of Maxis's. The Pentagon took it so they could use it as a reference when building their own teleporters. But the most interesting thing is, on the bottom of this teleporter, scribed in is the words, "For M who started me on this journey." Schuster tells us that it was Maxis who wrote this, so the question is, well, who was Maxis talking about back in the 1940s? In the original timeline, back at the very beginning in World at War, who was Maxis referring to when he said, "For M who started me on this journey"? Clearly he's not talking about himself. Maxis is really the only M that we know in our storyline. Even Schuster says he has no idea who Maxis could have been referring to. The only other M we know in our storyline is Monty, but we had no idea that back then in the original storyline, World at War, that Maxis even knew of Dr. Monty. Monty was never mentioned in the original storyline. Of course, he existed. He was there in the background. We know that Monty helped Group 935 when they were developing the perk machines. Monty assisted with that back in the 40s, so he was present, but we were never told. There was no reason for us to believe that Maxis knew of Monty's existence back then. He only knew he existed after Origins, after he travelled to the house and met Dr. Monty. Of course, that was all in the premise storyline, but in the Ether story, this was never brought up. And of course we have seen similar things to this in Zombies. We've seen the initial M pop up a few times. In Revelations there was a cipher that said, "Thanks to the sacrifice of Maxis and the contraption called Cipher, all of the 115 has been purged from the final universe. Thank God, time to get some rest. M." I think it's pretty clear that cipher is from Dr. Monty. He's thanking Dr. Maxis and Sophia for purging all of the evil from his perfect universe. Also in Shadows of Evil there was a cipher that said, "M is interested in these worthless beings. All his work will be undone. X." Again, M and that could be Monty. Who exactly X would be, I still don't know. And there was also a letter in Shadows of Evil in the reporter's hands who had been stabbed by Richtofen with the initials M on it as well. So this isn't new in our zombie storyline. We've been seeing this initial for quite a long time. When we first saw this in Shadows of Evil, we thought that it was on about Maxis because Monty wasn't introduced to us at that time. We only first really saw him or heard from him later on in Gored Korovian Revelations. And that's when we thought, well, M must stand for Monty instead of Maxis. So that's nothing new. Monty is involved in our premise story, but this letter takes us all the way back to the Ether story, or our Ether characters, the old Ultimus crew, back to the very beginning, Riese, where Dr. Maxis is thanking Monty for starting him on this journey. So it seems that Maxis knew of Dr. Monty back then. We do know that Dr. Monty has been keeping our characters, keeping everyone involved, trapped in a loop. All of these events, starting from the very beginning, Riese, Shino Numa, all the way to the end, Revelations, going all the way through World at War, BO1, BO2, and BO3, well, actually BO4 Zombies as well. All of these games, all of these maps are in one giant loop. It is Dr. Monty who has been keeping our characters in this loop, so he has been involved from the very beginning. He's been in the background, attempting to keep this loop continuing. He just wasn't introduced to us until later on. It's just, the strange thing is, why is Maxis talking about Dr. Monty in Riese? As far as we know, he never knew Monty existed until later on, until we play as the premise characters. But clearly he did. Did Dr. Maxis know of Monty's existence all this time? He just never said anything. Was Dr. Monty making contact? Was he talking to Maxis back in World at War? Did Dr. Monty encourage Maxis to build the teleporters? Maybe did Monty even tell Maxis to start up Group 935? Was it Monty's idea? Was he using Maxis to his advantage to keep the loop going? Obviously now, in Blood of the Dead, we have broken it. Our characters have found out what Dr. Monty has been doing. We found out he's evil and we are going to take him down. But this is just strange because Monty said that he never got involved in our storyline until Origins. He never made his presence known until that map. He was just there in the background. Yet apparently Dr. Maxis knew of his existence way before that. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. What do you think? It's definitely very interesting as always. Hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, you know what to do. Drop a like rating. That is all of these ciphers done in BO4 Zombies now. So that is it, unless there's any more that gets found. I can't say for sure. But make sure you are subscribed. Drop a like rating. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, goodbye.